Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're going to be comparing a Jeep Grand Cherokee L to a Jeep Wagoneer. Now, with this particular comparison, I picked out a fully loaded Summit, and then I picked out a Wagoneer with the Series 3 package, so we're comparing fully loaded to fully loaded, so this is going to be a really solid comparison overall. Now, before we get into the video, I do want to mention if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get into the comparison. Starting on the hood of the Grand Cherokee L, this particular one has a V6, but the engine that's more comparable to the Wagoneer is the 5.7 liter Hemi V8 that goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. It's good for 357 horsepower and then 390 pound-feet of torque. Towing capacity is right around 7,200 pounds roughly with the V8. Now going over to the Wagoneer, we have a naturally aspirated 5.7 liter Hemi V8. Goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. Is paired to an e-torque system. It's good for 392 horsepower and then 404 pound-feet of torque. Towing capacity is a little bit under 9,000 pounds, so it's still definitely practical from a towing capacity perspective, and there's more power and torque, right? Now, going over the front end of the Grand Cherokee L, you guys can see here with the hood, notice it's like flat there in the center, and then it kind of drops off on either side. You've got the daytime running lights here with the LED headlamps. Definitely a distinctive appearance. And then Jeep's signature front grille. And just notice the finish on everything with the front end. Definitely has more of that luxury SUV appearance to it. And then notice here at the bottom, again, with the parking sensors and also with the rest of the grille, you got the fog lights down there as well. And overall, it's a nice looking vehicle. Now going from that over to the Wagoneer, what you guys can see here with this is, of course, Wagoneer there, front and center. And then notice how the hood's kind of a little bit different with the overall theme and kind of like waves all over the place, best way to describe it. Lights are a little bit different. You can see the daytime running lights, and then notice how it has a projector bulb right there off to the side. And then again, Jeep signature front grille. But notice kind of with the finish on it, right, doesn't look as luxury-esque as the Grand Cherokee. And then fog lights, parking sensors there at the bottom. And, you know, lots of nice silver trimmed. But, you know, I still think it's a good-looking vehicle from a front-end perspective. Kind of looks like a giant compass almost, is the best way to describe it. It's kind of funny. Anyways, you can see the wheels here. With the Summit, you got massive wheels. It's kind of like a luxury SUV thing, is to do lots of wheel and not a lot of profile on the tires, just the way things go. The design's also pretty intricate, too. Got that splash guard there. Notice the Grand Cherokee logo on the side as well. And then you can see taking a few steps back here with the full side profile on the Grand Cherokee L. And then popping over to the Wagoneer. Notice with the wheel, I mean, it's a good looking wheel, but it doesn't look as like intricate as what you have over there with the Grand Cherokee. And then notice with the silver trim on it. Overall, like I said, I think it's a pretty decent looking wheel. There's a quick look at the front suspension. Notice here with the fender flare how that's painted. And then you can see taking a few steps back here. Notice with the different wheels you can get with the Wagoneers. So at least this is nicer for a Wagoneer, right? Got the Wagoneer logo, got the fixed side step as well. Notice the chrome trim that goes all around the window, just like on the Grand Cherokee L. It's like a theme, basically. And then 3 separate windows. It's kind of interesting with the design, how they have that set up. Here's a key fob for the Grand Cherokee L. Definitely looks nice. You got the remote start function, the opening for the hatch, which is pretty important. And you can see that popping open. So popping to the interior here, that's the button to lower down the hatch. And notice storage space is pretty decent. This is where we're going to see some key differences. With the third row, right, notice you can throw it down and raise it up with those buttons right there, which is pretty cool that it's all automated like that. Definitely adds to the practicality, being able to remotely throw down the seats and raise them up too. But going from that to the rest of the rear, what you'll notice here is that chrome strip kind of like comes down. Roof rails there at the top as well. And overall, I think they did a good job with the styling. Notice the taillights definitely have like a sleek appearance to them. Got your L badge, 4x4 badge, and then Overland, or sorry, not Overland, Summit on the other side. Guess I'm losing my mind a little bit. But yeah, definitely a nice appearance overall with the back of the Grand Cherokee L. And then moving from that over to the Wagoneer, this actually has air suspension, so notice that function is there on the key fob. And same thing with opening up the hatch. And you can see here with the seats, notice how you've got the same function with the throw down and raise up, which is pretty cool from a practicality standpoint. And then you can see the 12 volt, and then notice the storage space underneath as well. And storage behind the third row is a little bit larger for the Wagoneer, so that's one of the big practicality bits, but it's not as big as you would think. You would think that it would be like way larger, but it's just a little bit larger compared to the Grand Cherokee L. So you get more space, but you don't get as much as what you'd think. But they're going to make an extended wheelbase version of the Wagoneer soon. Now here's the Wagoneer logo, and then notice here with the lights in the back, I think they have a pretty cool distinctive appearance to them. That's like blacked out on the side. Then notice how that blacked out bar kind of connects it through the center. And this is a Series 3, so you got your Series 3 badge on top of that. And then you can see there with the bezel covering the receiver hitch at the bottom. And again, more boxy from a design perspective with the rear. Now this is where things get pretty interesting. So again, this is a Summit. So you guys can see here with the door panel with the trim, and notice with the wood trim and the leather, just everything looks really high-end with the Grand Cherokee. And it's got the Macintosh sound system, which definitely has very nice sound quality to it. It's probably one of the best sound systems out there right now in the car industry. And then here are the seats. So notice you got the black piping there and then perforated in the center, and then you can see with the quilted design on the sides. And notice room there for the second row is solid. And then you can see legroom as well. And then notice there with the little pocket. Got the climate controls there, so dual zone for the rear, which is pretty cool. It's not a feature that you see all that often. And then down below, you guys can see there with like the charging ports and all that. And then you got some cup holders, and then notice with the center console for the second row, which is another cool thing. Now as for the third row, typically reserve that for kids. It's a nice place. I can see from a material standpoint and everything. It's upscale, and the seats look great. Just not the most spacious with the third row, so that's definitely something to consider. But moving from that back over to the Wagoneer, you guys can see here with the door panel. So it doesn't look nearly as like luxury like from a material standpoint. And you know, the black does kind of like dull things down a little bit. You got the Alpine sound system, so not as premium. And then here are the seats. So again, you can see the design just isn't as cool as what you get in that Summit. And then notice with the legroom, the headroom. So this is one of the big differences with that. And then you guys can see there with the controls for the climate system and then the heated seats in the back, the outlets. And here's the difference. So I'm popping into the third row of the Wagoneer because you can easily fit adults back there. So even though the cargo space, there is a difference. There's not a huge difference, but there is a difference. The biggest difference is the third row is actually usable in the Wagoneer, whereas in the Grand Cherokee L, it's more reserved for kids. So there's that big distinction with both of them. And then popping from that back over to the Grand Cherokee L. Now you guys can see the door panel here. Look at the material use. Again, just really high quality stuff. Definitely has a luxury appearance to it. And also with the memory seats, it does have massaging seats as well. You got all the window controls and then the mirror adjustments. Mirrors do have blind spot monitoring. Then another speaker for the Macintosh sound system. And then here are the front seats. So again, just look at the appearance of the seats. Definitely has that nice upscale luxury appearance. Got all of your adjustments there on the side of the seat. And then notice with the pedal layout down below, pretty normal. They didn't do anything nice on that, which is kind of surprising. Got your light controls. And then look at the wood trim and then all of the leather. And it's cool that everything matches from a color perspective. And then popping back over to the Wagoneer. Notice again with the wood trim and then the silver trim around that. And then you can see with the leather down below. All of your window controls, you got the mirror adjustment and memory seats. And then there's a quick look at the mirrors themselves. And then again, a speaker for the Alpine sound system. And then notice there with the front seats. So, you know, not as pretty from a design perspective, but they're practical. They're comfortable. Got the adjustments there on the side, pedals down below. And the park and brake light controls, right? Pedal adjustment. And then notice the wood trim. The steering wheel is power adjustable is another thing. But popping back to the Grand Cherokee L. see the startup animation with this. Pretty cool. But here's the steering wheel. So what you'll notice first off is really nice from a material standpoint and from a design standpoint too, like just top-notch materials. Notice the airbag even has some nice stitching around it. And then you can see there with the cruise control system, controls for the center stack, paddle shifters on the back for the 8-speed automatic. Then notice the turn signal stock and the windshield wiper stock as well. And so yeah, overall, just a good looking steering wheel. Full digital gauge cluster. And notice the different menus you can scroll through and how you can change the gauge cluster, which is pretty cool. So it'll show different bits of info on the vehicle and just like the overall setup. And that's one of the benefits of a digital gauge cluster, is being able to have that customization with the vehicle. And then notice the different drive modes. It's still a Jeep, so they have like all the off-road modes and everything that come with it. Auto is probably what you'll use most of the time. And you can see it's adjusting the air suspension depending on what drive mode that you're in. And then going from that, you guys can see there with all of the controls at the top, including like the parking sensors and then the parking assistance. And then notice here with the climate controls, you can see there, first off, well, camera system. Got the full 360 camera system with the Jeep, so that's solid. Resolution's good as well. So from a parking perspective, it'd be easy. I like how you have trajectory lines as if someone's gonna take it off-road. And you can also do the camera clean function on it. And then what you also notice here with the camera system is, it's relatively easy to use. Now notice here with the climate system, you've got the dual zone climate system, heated, cooled seats. And then we also have all the different massage functions for the seats as well. And it's cool that they have a bunch of different modes with the massage seats, so that you can go through all the different settings, whatever you want to have from a customization perspective. And then with the infotainment system, response time's great with it. I feel like it's nicely integrated into the dash with the overall setup. And then you can also see with the infotainment system, you got the shortcut bar there at the bottom. And then notice with the nice material used throughout, and then you can see that the USBs, and then you've got your analog controls like the radio, climate system, heated cooled seats, all that normal stuff. Got the dial shifter for the 8-speed automatic, the drive mode select, and then notice your 4-wheel low. And then you can see there for the air suspension to raise and lower it. And with the off-road height, it's actually pretty high off the ground, decent amount of ground clearance, but it is stiffer when you have it in the higher settings. And then notice with the center console for material standpoint, definitely really high-end stuff. And then with the wood trim there, and then also with the rest of the material use on the dash. And then notice there with the glove box, and then everything flows together from a material standpoint, as you can see. So again, it just all looks really high-end, and I feel like they did a good job with the design. And then here's the center situation, and also it's premium headliner. So again, everything that you pretty much look at looks high-end. And then also you got the camera mirror, which is a nice bit of safety tech for the Jeep. And then also I love how you have like the speakers on the corners that look really cool, and again, say Macintosh on it. Now going from that over to the Wagoneer, you can see a full digital gauge cluster, and then notice there with the steering wheel, it says Wagoneer in the center, and then you can see there with the material use all around, and then notice the stitching in the center again. Doesn't look as premium. Controls are the same though. You got like the adaptive cruise control, controls for the center stack, turn signal stock, and then you got the windshield wiper stock as well. And then moving from, that's also, it's a 2-spoke steering wheel, which is kind of weird, but moving from that to the gauge cluster, as you can see, you've got the full digital gauge cluster, which you can kind of like grow and shrink the gauges, which is a cool little feature. And another thing to mention is the different drive modes here. So auto is the mode you're probably going the most. Still has off-road modes, because again, ultimately it is a Jeep, even though people will probably never take it off-road. It's got that capability, right? And then here is the screen. So you can see it's pretty nicely integrated into the dash, and notice just regular backup camera. And you can see the seat controls are on the side of the screen. It's cool that they have like the little shortcut buttons for it. And then notice there with the shortcut bar at the bottom as well. Dual zone climate controls there on the screen. Again, you do have the climate zone for the rear passengers as well. And so again, usability on it is fantastic. I think they've done a great job with that. And then you also notice with the vehicle tab right there, you can see different things that you can turn on or off, and you can also fold down like stuff with the third row with the headrests, for example, which is nice for visibility if you need it. And yeah, I think they did a solid job. Got the extra storage space down below that with the USBs and the wireless phone charger. And then you can see a little cover for it. And then notice like stuff like auto stop, start, lane departure, stability control, hazard lights, all that. And then your drive mode select. And then notice with the low range, and then also with the air suspension to raise and lower that. Still have a nice dial shifter too. And it's got like an off-road setting with the air suspension too. And then notice that the cup holder area, and then the center console is massive. So that's definitely a big difference. Again, more space in the Wagoneer. It's one of the big differentiating factors with it. Yeah, center console, I didn't want to close, that's funny. Anyways, you guys can see the material is all over, definitely soft. It's probably because I had something stuck in it. And then glove box setup. And then notice the second screen there. So that's another thing with the Wagoneer and the Grand Wagoneer is you can get it in the, I'm pretty sure you can get it in the Jeep Grand Cherokee too as an option. Just don't see it as often. But basically you have that screen there on the side which you can turn on for the passenger so they can control things. I mean, it's kind of funny that they just have to reach over to the infotainment system, but it's, you know, it's a little bit of a gimmick, but it's a nice thing that adds practicality to the vehicle. And now let's kind of talk about pricing quickly. So if that Grand Cherokee L had the Hemi, it'd be pretty close to like $70,000. The Wagoneer was just over $80,000 with that Series 3 package. So there's about a $10,000, $11,000 price difference between both of the vehicles. Obviously, if you want more space, Wagoneer. If you want more bang for your buck, then the Grand Cherokee will give that to you. And I think the Grand Cherokee L Summit will work for most people. And again, you're getting a more luxury experience with that. You're getting a nicer vehicle with that for less money. And so what I'd have to say is if you don't need the towing capacity, if you don't need the space, the Grand Cherokee L is going to be the one to go for from a value perspective.